Family finds an unusual blockage while renovating their chimney. Renovating an older home is a big job. You have to inspect every square inch of a place, making sure that there's no mold, no broken beams, leaky pipes, or chipped foundation. Big jobs like this can uncover hidden dangers lurking in even the most fantastically appointed home. Luckily, sometimes these big jobs can uncover hidden secrets of a more valuable nature as well. Amazing objects hidden away by the former tenants have been found lurking in crawl spaces, attics, and basements. In the case of one Aberdeen family, it was an even more unusual place and an even more unusual object. This amazing discovery begins in an old house in Aberdeen, northeastern Scotland. The renovation was an exhaustive process and required a great deal of wall gutting, repainting, and re-insulating. As they approached the end of the job, they noticed something unusual blocking the chimney. Something the realtors definitely hadn't mentioned. The item blocking the chimney was also blocking the flue itself, preventing the hearth from opening up completely should they want to light a fire. The man reached inside the flue and pulled on it, whatever it was. It was big and it was lodged pretty deeply in there. With one final yank, he plucked it free. What he pulled out appeared to be a crumpling ball of rags. The previous owner must not have wanted to use the fireplace at all and probably used the bundle of rags as makeshift insulation. He was about to toss it in the dumpster with the rest of his house's old, tattered garbage when something caught his eye. There was something written on the other side of the rags. It was as if it was parchment inscribed with something, but it was enormous and ancient. Perhaps it had belonged to someone before the previous owner, and rather than throw it out, he had repurposed it to keep cold winds from blowing in. The man tried to unroll the parchment, but the more he tried to unfurl the piece of paper, the more the thing began to flake apart into a million tiny pieces. He didn't want to ruin the thing, not after he decided to save it from the bin anyway. Perhaps someone with a steadier hand should try and figure out what this thing was. Eventually, the man decided that the object, whatever it bloody was just another piece of old garbage he didn't need. Still, he knew it was old, possibly ancient, and something that someone at the local historical society might like to see. Soon the strange object found its way to the National Library of Scotland in Edinburgh. The strange bundle was rolled up in a polythene bag and stuffed in an old packing box. It didn't look like much when the researchers first opened it, but some careful finagling revealed that the object was indeed a historic find. It was a map of the world that hadn't been seen for centuries. It dated as far back as the late 17th century. Not only was it a world map, it was also immense. The huge map measured an astounding 7 feet long and 5 feet wide. It would have required 8 sheets of paper to construct, and it was backed by canvas, which was why it was perfect for insulating the man's chimney. The only problem was that it was in pretty terrible condition. Despite its crumbling facade, it showed the whole world with views of magnificent cities running along its side and portraits of famous individuals all around it. Its size would have made it an impressive wall ornament during its day. Back in those days, maps like these would have been an impressive status symbol for its owner. Only the wealthiest men and women of the time could afford maps, let alone ones as ornate and special as this one was. It was a symbol of great wealth and could very likely have been one of a kind. The map's artist, whoever it was, added illustrations of famous people and places around the edges of the document. These images formed a sort of story of the late 1700s and would have been akin to owning a modern-day photograph of world events at the time. The faces of King William III of England and his wife Queen Mary were drawn prominently on the map as well. These portraits helped the conservationists date the map to around 1690 AD, because at the time William III ruled over both Ireland and Scotland as well. There were also some other elements that helped date the map further. Numerous sea battles were also drawn on the map. Many of them indicated the Dutch colonization of Portugal and China. Both events would have been big news at the time. Once the preservationists got their hands on it, they would find the map a fascinating insight into life more than 300 years ago. Some of the creepier drawings on the map included something alluding to the Black Legend, which was a clear description of the suffering brought upon indigenous peoples in Latin America by Spanish invaders. It clearly painted the Dutch in a fine light, while their enemies, the Spanish, were painted as blackguards and conquerors. But who painted it in the first place. Researchers found that the map was originally created by mapmaker George Wildey, a popular London mapmaker at the time. There was a hitch, however. Wildey was actually better known for copying maps initially drafted by others. This was obviously the case with the Aberdeen map, whose origins lay more in Amsterdam and the Netherlands. After all, who but the Dutch would paint the Dutch in such a favorable light? Experts believe that it was based on a map created by Schenk and Valk, more popular Dutch mapmakers in the 17th century. Wildey must have added William III and his wife to add a British touch. But if it was such a wonderful piece of art, why hide it in the chimney in the first place? Researchers speculate that it was originally hidden because of the king's Protestant religious beliefs. After all, most of Scotland and Ireland are Roman Catholic and would have been hard-pressed to find a relic of a Protestant English king hanging in an Aberdeen parlor back in the day. The map went through many stages of cleaning. Researchers brushed it, flattened it, dry cleaned it, and even let it soak in hot water before attempting to try and piece it back together in its entirety. Many parts of the map were lost between its time in the chimney and its refurbishing, but the conservationists are confident they could restore it completely. According to conservator Claire Thompson, the restoration was the hardest job she'd ever faced. So much of the paper had been lost, and so much that was left was either too hard and brittle to manipulate or too soft and thin to handle. Still, the dedicated team at the National Library of Scotland kept at it. Today, the conservationists continue their work. They fear that it may be a long time before they can fully restore it. They'll continue, though, in their painstaking work until they can restore it to its former glory and display it proudly for the public to see. Not bad for a crumpled piece of junk from inside a chimney. Please share this video with your friends below.